You wake before the sun, but not on purpose. The air is heavy, unmoving. Somewhere beyond the marble walls, a cicada clicks once, as if trying out its voice. Your body is tangled in linen, damp, uncomfortable, and clinging. You're a Roman senator, but that doesn't stop your back from aching. Power doesn't soften stone. You shift, slowly, as if the bed were not your own, because in many ways it never was. There are figs on the tray beside you. One has split in the night, skin torn open like a wound. You watch a fly dip its legs into the sweet pulp and wonder, briefly, vaguely, if it tastes the same to him. The house is too quiet. No footsteps yet. No slaves murmuring outside the atrium. No hint of breakfast being arranged in the tablinum. Just silence. The kind that clings. The kind that feels like something is missing. Your feet find the cold tile floor. Your sandals, worn in the heel, wait obediently. The robe you pull over your shoulders is dyed just pale enough to signal wealth without vanity. Even in leisure, Rome demands performance. You look out the narrow window. The sky is still the color of old ash. Somewhere far beyond the Palatine Hill, someone is being born. Somewhere else, someone is dying. Neither event will matter by the time the Senate assembles. History doesn't remember your name, not because you weren't important, but because you were never loud, never scandalous. You passed decrees about aqueducts and grain shipments. You kept the peace. You obeyed tradition. You were useful. But what if history erased you anyway? What if your whole life, your careful rituals, your dusty scrolls, your endless debates about marble contracts vanished like steam off a bathhouse floor? You press your hands together and breathe deeply, as if prayer might hold the day in place, because this is just the beginning, and you haven't even made it to the latrine yet. If this slow, forgotten corner of Roman life feels strangely familiar, if you've ever felt lost in your own routine or wondered whether the things you do, day after day, will ever mean anything, then settle in. This is your story now, a Roman senator's entire day, from Bathhouse to Boredom. If you'd like more quiet stories like this, ones that drift gently between forgotten details and oddly soothing truths, feel free to subscribe, like, or comment below. Tell us, what time do you usually listen? Or where do you tune in from? We'd love to know. But for now, close your eyes if you'd like. Let your thoughts drift, because the sun is just beginning to rise, and your sandals are waiting. The house begins to stir. You hear it first as a soft sleep of bristles across mosaic, a slave cleaning the hallway, then the sound of amphorae shifting in the storeroom, your steward clearing his throat, quiet rhythms of a machine older than any empire, the Roman morning. You sit at the edge of the bed, letting the robe hang loose. Your body is softening with age. Not fat, not frail, just soft, as if your skin has given up pretending you're a soldier. You haven't fought a battle in 20 years, unless you count debating water tariffs with that insufferable Lucius Verus. A boy arrives with a brass basin of water. He sets it down, eyes averted, and vanishes. You wash your face with your fingers. No mirror today. You've stopped looking most mornings. The lines don't change. The atrium is cool, marble beneath your feet. A small fountain murmurs lazily in the center. The family gods, your Lauras and Penates, stand on their little shelf beside the hearth. Dusty, but unbothered. You nod to them, more out of habit than reverence. They've heard your morning greetings for 30 years. You don't expect anything back. Breakfast is simple. A bit of bread, some olives, a few dates. You don't speak while eating. You learned early that speech before noon often leads to regret. Today's agenda is tucked neatly inside a scroll, laid beside the oil lamp by your assistant. Senate meeting at the Curia Julia, a discussion about shipping taxes, an update on road repairs near Capua. Nothing thrilling, nothing dreadful, which in Rome is a kind of victory. You step out onto the portico. The sun is higher now, slanting over the tiled roof. A cart clatters down the alley. Someone's whipping a mule. Not hard, just enough to keep it honest. You hear laughter from the bakery 2 doors down. The day, like most Roman days, is already louder than you'd like. You make your way to the latrine. Yes, even senators go. The chamber is shaded, cool. The seat is stone. A sponge on a stick sits in a shallow bowl of vinegar. You try not to think too hard about it. Rome has its strengths. Sanitation is not one of them. Later, as you're being oiled for the bath, you think about the silence again. It followed you all morning. Not ominous, but persistent. Like someone watching you from behind a curtain that never moves. Your bath is scheduled before Senate hours. You lie back on the warm stone, steam curling over your chest. A slave scrapes your skin gently with a strigil, removing oil, sweat, memory. You feel oddly clean and strangely absent. This was the part of the day you used to look forward to. Baths and jokes and idle gossip. But now, most of your peers are gone. Some dead. Some retired to their villas in Tiber. A few were exiled after saying the wrong name in the wrong tone at the wrong time. You sip diluted wine. You close your eyes. For a moment, you are weightless. And then you remember, today is the anniversary of something. You just can't remember what. Maybe it'll come to you in the Senate chamber. Maybe it won't. Maybe it doesn't matter.
You dry yourself slowly, not out of luxury, but because your bones demand it. The slave patting your back with a linen cloth is the son of a man who once did the same for your father. He does not speak. He knows better than to interrupt the silence that follows the bath, that sacred drifting quiet between heat and politics. Your tunic is laid out, undyed, modest, a senator's stripe stitched into the seam like a whisper. You dress with the care of a man who knows everything in Rome is a signal. Too fine, and you're ridiculed. Too plain, and you're suspected of pride through restraint. You walk the line, as always. Your sandals are strapped with precision. Your belt is fastened with the same knot your tutor once taught you. He called it the knot of decency. You never did learn what he meant, but you've never dared change it. Your litter waits in the courtyard. 6 slaves stand at attention, their faces unreadable. You nod once. They lift. You rise above the street, not in majesty, but in mild discomfort. The litter sways like a slow ship crossing a choppy sea of horse dung, open drains, and stray dogs. Rome unfolds around you. There's a beggar near the old temple of Saturn. His hair is white and wild. He's holding a chicken. You're not sure why. The chicken looks embarrassed. You pass a vendor selling perfume. Too early in the day for scent, but his voice is confident. He calls out his blends: rose for wives, frankincense for gods, myrrh for mother-in-laws. A woman nearby laughs too hard. Her teeth are stained with wine already. A child chases a hoop through a colonnade, nearly colliding with your litter. One of your bearers hisses, but the boy vanishes into shadow before a reprimand can catch him. You watch the hoop roll along for a moment before it topples. The forum is awakening. Columns throw long shadows over marble steps. Pigeons cluster on the statues of dead generals, unconcerned with their reputations. The Curia Julia looms ahead, squat and unimpressed by your arrival. Your bearers set you down gently. You adjust your robe, straighten your spine, and exhale through your nose. Time to talk about grain. Inside, the chamber smells of dust, sweat, and old ambition. You nod to the doorkeeper, who pretends to care. A few senators have already gathered. Some you know by name, others you only know by their snoring. You take your usual seat, third row, left side, beneath the cracked fresco and Mars looking confused. Appropriate. The first speaker drones. Something about road tolls in Sicily. He mispronounces a town's name and 3 senators wake up at once. You think about correcting him, but decide against it. You're not here to win. You're here to endure. Your mind drifts. To the fig on your breakfast tray. To the cracked tile in your bathhouse. To the anniversary you still haven't remembered. A pigeon flutters past the window. You wonder if it's the same one you saw in the forum. Probably not, but the idea pleases you. Next, Lucas Verus takes the floor. His voice is like vinegar on a wound, sharp, confident, needlessly loud. He gestures too often. His ring flashes in the light. You resist the urge to roll your eyes. Barely. He's arguing that certain senators, meaning you of course, have delayed construction on the new aqueduct. You are accused of convenient caution. You are accused of being too fond of slow decisions. You are accused of thinking before acting. You take this as a compliment. Your reply is short, measured, deceptively bland. The chamber quiets. When you sit back down, Lucas is still standing, his mouth open, waiting for a counter-argument that never arrives. A few senators smirk. One claps, softly. Lunch is delayed. You don't mind. Hunger makes speeches more bearable. Hours pass. So do several topics. You nod when necessary. Scribble on a wax tablet. Scratch your ear thoughtfully. You could do this in your sleep. You suspect many already are. At last, the session ends. Not with triumph, not with outrage. Just ends. You step outside into sunlight that has shifted. Sharper now, warm against your robe. A breeze lifts the edge of your tunic. For a moment, you feel oddly young. Your litter carries you home again, swaying through streets filled with merchants, poets, and thieves. It's hard to tell them apart sometimes. You pass a funeral procession. The mourners are silent, heads bowed. You count 12. An unlucky number. Someone behind them is carrying a carved mask of the deceased. The face is neutral, serene. You wonder if the real man looked anything like that. At home, the steward meets you at the gate. There's a letter from your cousin in Antioch. You'll read it later. Your feet are sore. Your neck is stiff. Your robe smells faintly of bath oil and sun. The house is quiet again, but this time it feels gentle, not haunting, just resting. Like you lie back on the couch, loosen your belt, and watch the ceiling for cracks you might have missed. Still no memory of the anniversary, but it's okay. You did your duty, you kept your head down, you listened more than you spoke. And in Rome, that's a kind of survival, but that is a story for tomorrow night.
You wake from your afternoon nap without quite meaning to. The light in the room has changed. It slants through the shutters in long golden bars, settling across the tiles like a memory. Your body is warm and slightly sticky, pressed into the fabric of the couch. You blink slowly, not because you are tired, but because it feels good to take your time. Outside, someone is sweeping the courtyard again. The bristles make that familiar rasp against stone, soft and scratchy, like the sound of sandals over sand. It comforts you, not because it means anything in particular, just because it's always there. You sit up gradually. The robe has fallen open at your chest.
and a bit of olive oil from lunch lingers on your chin. You wipe it with the back of your hand. Dignity in Rome, like everything else, is an illusion of angles. Sit just right, and you are noble. Slouch a little, and you are ridiculous. In the atrium, the fountain is still burbling, as though unaware that hours have passed. It always sounds the same, indifferent, rhythmic, tired of its own purpose, like most things in this house, like most things in the Senate. Your steward reappears. He speaks in a tone that is neither urgent nor relaxed, just informative, like rain falling into a bucket. There is a guest. You nod slowly. Who? Marcus Longinus. You groan inwardly, but not loud enough to be heard. Longinus is not a friend, not quite an enemy, more like a prolonged inconvenience with eyebrows. He is a man who believes gossip is a form of patriotism. You offer him a seat, which he takes without thanks. I won't stay long, he says, settling in as though preparing to die there. You nod politely. Of course. There is a pause. Then he launches in. Taxes, a new magistrate, something about a praetor's niece seen dancing with a Greek actor, the price of Sicilian wine, whether the aqueduct will collapse on its own or with help. You respond with quiet nods and vague hums. You have long since perfected the art of polite inattention. It is a shield more valuable than bronze. The conversation, if it can be called that, drips on like a leaky roof. Eventually, your steward coughs discreetly from the hall. It is a mercy. Longinus rises with a sigh, as if leaving cost him something. He takes a date from your table without asking. You look tired, he says, in the tone of someone pleased to notice. I nap when I can. Must be nice, he says, though he means the opposite. Then he is gone. You sit alone again. The date tray looks slightly emptier. The silence returns. Not perfect, but close enough. A little later, your wife passes through the atrium. She says nothing. Neither do you. After 28 years of marriage, words are sometimes unnecessary. Other times, they're unhelpful. She glances at you once, then disappears into her chamber. You're not sure if she's angry. You're not sure if you care. That's the trouble with longevity. It wears down even your ability to react. A slave brings a wet cloth for your forehead. You didn't ask, but it's appreciated. The cloth smells faintly of lavender, a detail that feels almost intimate. You close your eyes. You breathe. Dinner will be served soon. Nothing elaborate. Some lentils, a piece of grilled fish, a bit of honeyed cheese if the cook is feeling generous. You used to demand more. These days, simplicity tastes better. You hear children laughing in the street beyond your wall. Someone has dropped a jar. You imagine it breaking into 7 pieces, though you never go check. Some things are better left unheard, unseen. Your steward enters again, holding a scroll. He says, "A message." You gesture. He reads, "From Tulia. She asks if you remember the date." Ah, that's it. Tulia, your daughter, or perhaps more accurately, the person who used to be your daughter. She lives across the sea now, married to a provincial official with a face like boiled wheat. You didn't attend the wedding. There were tensions. Today is her birthday. You remember now, the fig on the tray, the anniversary that lingered just outside reach. She was born on a day just like this, warm, a little dusty, with a sky like hammered bronze. You feel something in your chest, not sorrow exactly, not regret, more like the echo of something you once cared more about than the Senate, more than your name carved in stone. You nod to the steward. Send a reply. Tell her I remembered, even if I didn't. He bows and leaves. You recline again, letting your head rest against the cushion. Your eyes drift to the ceiling. That same crack you noticed before, is it longer now, or just older, like everything. A breeze stirs the curtain. It smells faintly of bast, warm stone, and bread baking somewhere nearby. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen, just for a little while, to the sounds of a house still holding itself together, to the breath of a city that never quite sleeps, no matter how many of its citizens try. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
Dinner is quiet. The fish is tender, its bones small and delicate, served on a ceramic dish painted with vines. You eat slowly, picking around the spine, chewing with care. Across the table, your wife eats too, methodically. You hear the soft tap of her spoon against the side of the lentil bowl. No words pass between you, but none are needed. In Rome, silence is not always a sign of distance. Sometimes it means that two people have simply run out of new things to say and have decided, without drama or ceremony, to stay anyway. You sip watered wine. It's sharp at the back of the tongue, but it warms you. There's a certain kind of comfort in wine that isn't trying to impress anyone. The oil lamp on the wall flickers gently. Its flame reflects in the bronze dishes, giving everything the illusion of movement. Shadows stretch and sway. You remember, suddenly, a night years ago, your daughter dancing in this very room, balancing a date on her head, your wife pretending not to smile. You glance up now, but the room gives no sign it remembers. After the plates are cleared, your steward reappears with a small pouch. Inside, a dry fig. Not just any fig, one from the tree in your private garden. You planted it yourself decades ago, mostly out of boredom. It survived, thrived, and now produces 3 figs a year. They are terrible, but they're yours. You bite into it, grainy, oversweet, but somehow right. Outside, dusk deepens. You hear the muffled thump of shutters being drawn by neighbors, the clang of iron gates closing for the night, the scrape of sandals on cobblestone. You wander into the peristyle, letting the cool air settle on your skin. The fountain here is older, slower. Water trickles down the mossy edge of a cracked basin. A frog lives in the bottom now. You haven't named him, but you've come to expect him. Somewhere above, the first star appears, not because anyone summoned it, but because time insists. You sit on a bench worn smooth by habit. The garden smells of damp earth, old rosemary, and fig leaves warmed by the day's sun. You listen, not for anything in particular, just in case something somewhere decides to speak. You think about the scrolls waiting on your study desk, letters from provincial governors, a report on lead usage and new plumbing systems, a copy of a speech you gave last winter, annotated by your secretary with the word shorter scrolled in the margins. You think about answering them, and then you don't. Instead, you just sit and breathe. A slave approaches to ask if you'll need the brazier lit tonight. You shake your head. Not yet. The air is still warm enough, soft enough. You'd like to keep it as it is, for just a little longer. In the distance, you hear the soft rhythmic beat of a flute, someone practicing, probably badly, but even that feels distant enough to be pleasant. And then you catch it. A scent. Not rosemary, not fig, not damp stone. Something else. Something fainter. Jasmine. You look toward the garden wall. The vines have bloomed early this year, or maybe you simply forgot to notice. It reminds you, for no clear reason, of your first year in the Senate, of how terrified you were the first time you rose to speak, of how dry your mouth went, how tightly you gripped the scroll, though you didn't read from it. You look at your hands now, older, calmer, not stronger, just steadier. The brazier is lit at after all, despite your earlier refusal. The steward must have known you better than you knew yourself. The firelight moves across the tiles. You catch a reflection in the polished bronze shield mounted on the wall. You look like a statue, one of those old marble senators with the nose chipped off. You don't mind. In Rome, to endure is enough. The stars multiply overhead. The wind shifts briefly. You hear the creak of a cart somewhere, moving too slowly to be urgent. A dog barks, a baby cries. Somewhere nearby, a man begins singing tunelessly about wine. You smile, just a little, and for a moment, nothing hurts. Not your back, not your name, not even your memories. You close your eyes. You let the air touch your face. And the house, as old as it is, holds its breath with you. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You don't know how long you've been sitting there. The night has crept in without ceremony. The last orange light has faded from the courtyard tiles, replaced now by a muted silver that seeps down from a cloudless moon. It feels like the entire city is holding still, suspended in a single, silent exhale. You adjust your robe, just slightly. The brazier crackles at your side, not for warmth, but for company. Fire doesn't talk, but it listens. You've come to prefer listeners. Somewhere beyond the garden wall, an amphora is being unloaded. You can hear the sharp tap of pottery against stone. Carefully measured, cautious. Either wine or oil. Either way, someone will spill a little. Someone always does. You let your eyes wander to the upper edges of the courtyard, to the carved cornice shaped like vine leaves. You've looked at it for 30 years. You've never decided whether it's beautiful. It simply exists. The house has quieted again. No footsteps now, no clinking dishes, just the occasional soft cough of a slave turning in for the night. You don't miss the noise, you miss the chance of it, of voices, of newness, of change. Even dull conversation once had the promise of surprise. Now, most surprises are the bad kind. You rise, joints cracking like the floor beneath a marble column. You walk slowly toward your study. The lamp flickers as you enter, already lit, already waiting, because your steward knows your rhythm better than you do. The scrolls are where you left them, the letter from Antioch, the water decree, a half-finished note to the governor of Baetica, asking politely why the roads are still worse than a Gallic goat path. You consider finishing it, but the ink feels too heavy tonight. Instead, you pick up something else. A tiny figurine carved from bone. A dog, roughly shaped, a little crude, clearly old. You found it years ago in the Forum, half buried near a broken column. You were late for a vote. You picked it up anyway. You've kept it ever since, though you never told anyone. It fits perfectly in your palm, smooth from years of being handled, a useless object, but one that reminds you, for reasons you can't explain, that not everything has to be useful. You sit at your desk and set it down. The lamplight glows against its pale back. You watch the shadows dance around its paws. A gust of wind brushes against the shutters. Not strong, just enough to remind you that night moves even when you don't. You lean back, letting the chair creak beneath you. Your thoughts drift, not forward, not backward, just sideways. You remember a boy who once tried to sell you a poem for a single coin. You refused. Not because you were cruel, but because you assumed it was terrible. Later, you wondered what it said. You still do. You remember your father, silent at the same desk, carving lines into wood with a knife he never used for anything else. You never found out why. The desk still bears the marks. You remember your daughter's handwriting, angular, impatient. Even her letters had somewhere better to be. You remember things you didn't think you'd remember, things you didn't mean to keep. The fire in the brazier pops once, and a single ember arcs upward like a dying star. It vanishes before it reaches the ceiling. You smile without meaning to. Then you stand, slowly. The lamp is turned down, the scrolls are left unread. The little bone dog stays behind, watching the empty room without blinking. You walk back through the atrium, past the fountain, past the cooling tiles, past the house gods, still standing watch beside the hearth, still dusty, still indifferent. In your sleeping chamber, the linens have been changed. The scent of lavender lingers faintly, woven into the folds. Your sandals are placed beside the bed. A cup of water waits on the table. You notice everything without reacting to any of it. You lie down, not carefully, not dramatically, just as one lies down at the end of a day that has asked little, but still taken something. The ceiling above you is dark, faint outlines of beams. A spider, maybe. You're not sure. You inhale, you hold it, you let it go. No triumph, no tragedy, just the middle of a life, the place where most days live and die without ceremony. The city breathes beneath you. It creaks, it shifts, it dreams. And for tonight, you do the same. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You wake before dawn again, not because you're restless, not because you're worried, just because your body, after so many years, has decided that 5 hours is enough. The room is still dark, no lamps lit, no birds yet. Even the dogs in the street are silent. You lie still. Your eyes trace the vague outline of ceiling beams overhead. You listen. For what, you don't know. The house offers nothing but its own stillness. Somewhere, a shutter creaks, then stillness again. You turn onto your side. The linen is cool, folded perfectly where you haven't yet touched it. You breathe slowly, letting the silence wash over you, not empty, but full of the weight of 1,000 invisible things. It is too early for servants, too early for sandals, too early even for thought, but not too early to be alive. Eventually you sit up, not quickly, not with effort, just because the stillness has run its course. You place your feet on the stone floor. Still cold, still Roman, still exactly the same as yesterday. The jug of water on the table is half full. You pour a little into the basin and wash your face with your hands. The shock of it wakes you fully. You press your palms to your eyes and feel the quiet hum of blood moving underneath.
This morning, the atrium is darker than usual, overcast. The sky above the open roof looks like old parchment, creased, gray, unpromising. The fountain still gurgles, doing its job long after anyone has cared. You wonder how many days it's been since someone cleaned it. Probably not long. Still, it looks neglected. Or maybe that's just the light. You walk barefoot to the peristyle. The air smells like wet stone. Somewhere in the garden, a bird chirps once, realizes it's too early, and goes quiet again. You think about the Senate, what will be discussed today, what will be ignored. There's talk of a new temple or maybe a repaving project, a shipment of Sicilian marble lost at sea, a minor dispute over tax exemptions. None of it feels pressing. Most things don't. Back in your chamber, your robe is waiting, pale wool, unremarkable, the kind that no one notices, which is exactly the point. You've learned that blending in takes as much effort as standing out, just different kinds of attention. You dress slowly. The fabric falls around you with a familiarity that's both comforting and mildly oppressive, like a family name. When the steward enters, he brings hot water and a warm towel for your hands. He bows slightly, asks nothing. You nod, say nothing. This ritual is older than friendship. You eat alone this morning. Bread, a little honey, a handful of grapes that are beginning to wrinkle. The sweetness is pleasant, though the skins stick to your teeth. You chew slowly, no reason to rush. In the hallway, you hear the sound of bronze being polished, a young slave singing under his breath, off-key but committed. You almost smile. You remember a time when the sound of servants made you feel powerful. Now it just makes you feel observed. Your sandals are brought to you, already tied in loose loops for easier fastening. You step into them carefully, noting how your toes have begun to widen over the years. A senator's feet, despite the titles, are still just feet. You don't speak to anyone as you leave the house, not from arrogance, just inertia. You're not feeling especially wise or important this morning, just present. That will have to do. Outside, the city is stirring. A donkey brays nearby, followed by a string of sharp curses in a dialect you don't quite recognize. A baker lifts the door of his shop with a grunt. The smell of flour and ash drifts into the street. Your litter isn't ready. You decide to walk. The stones are uneven, still damp from the night's mist. You pass a boy carrying a basket of pears, each one wrapped in cloth. He offers you one without speaking. You nod, but decline. His grin misses 2 teeth. You make your way through back alleys, past broken columns, faded murals, sleeping cats curled beneath balconies. This Rome, the quiet Rome, the Rome before the shouting and the gestures and the decrees, feels like something worth knowing. You reach the baths before they open. The gate is still barred. A young man sits on the step, head down, asleep beside a jug of oil. You sit near him, not close, not far, just enough to feel you're sharing the same air. The sky brightens slowly, not golden, just pale, like something ashamed of being morning. You watch it without judgment. You've lived through hundreds of mornings, some triumphant, some dull, some filled with speeches that made statues weep, others with silence so deep it felt like the end of history. This one is just a morning, and you are just a man. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
The bathhouse opened slowly, like a temple reluctant to admit worshippers. A creak of the heavy gate,
the hollow thump of sandals on stone. The first few voices echo through the steamless halls, soft, cautious, still half asleep. You rise from the step without hurry. The boy with the jug is gone now, vanished into the morning like a dream you weren't meant to remember. Inside, the air is still cool. No steam yet, no scent of oil, no chorus of polite laughter. Just bare walls, worn benches, and echoes. You are early, not because you are eager, but because you've learned that the best moments in Rome happen when no one else is paying attention. You strip with the ease of habit. The tunic falls around your feet. Your skin, pale where the sun has never reached, catches the chill. A slave takes your clothes without speaking. Another offers a light oil rub before the bath. You accept, not because you need it, but because saying no requires more effort than yielding. The strigil is warm today. A pleasant surprise. The curved metal scrapes gently across your shoulders, peeling away sleep and memory. You wonder what it would feel like to be scraped clean of thought, of duty, of Rome. You step into the tepidarium first. The water greets your legs like a sigh. Lukewarm, indifferent, exactly what you expected. You wade slowly, arms drifting, eyes half closed. There are only two others in the room. One, a bald man humming to himself while inspecting a callus on his foot. The other, a younger senator whose name you've forgotten, or perhaps never knew. He nods to you with a deference that suggests he still hopes you remember him. You do not return the nod, not out of cruelty, but out of weariness. Rome is full of men who want to be noticed, and fewer who deserve to be remembered. After some time, you move to the caldarium. Steam curls around your face like the breath of an old god. The air grows heavy. The stone walls glisten with condensation. You sit on the bench nearest the vent, letting the heat rise into your bones. Your lungs fill with warmth. A slave pours water across your back, just once and gently. You don't thank him. He doesn't expect it. Gratitude, like most courtesies in Rome, is a coin too often spent on those who cannot spend it back. You stay in the steam longer than you should. Your body begins to float inside itself, loose and languid. Your thoughts, too, begin to soften at the edges. You remember less and feel more. It is a kind of temporary peace, shaped not by philosophy, but by warm vapor and stillness. When you finally rise, your legs tingle. The air outside the caldarium feels sharp, intrusive. You dry yourself with a cloth left folded on a stool. A robe is brought. You put it on. It clings slightly to your damp skin. In the frigidarium, you pause. The pool is cold, never inviting, always inevitable. You step in 1 foot at a time, wincing only internally. The chill climbs your calves, your thighs, your spine. You submerge to your neck, and for one fleeting moment, you feel something almost like newness. You emerge, gasping, not dramatically, just enough to remind your lungs that this body still holds surprises. The room echoes with your breath. A slave hands you a cloth. Your hair drips onto your shoulders. You sit on the edge of the stone basin, water running in rivulets down your shins. You close your eyes. Behind them, the image of Rome floats, its arches, its markets, its unfinished buildings and finished men, a place where everything is built to last, and nothing ever does. Back in your changing room, your original tunic waits for you, folded and faintly warm from the sun that's finally breached the sky. You dress. The cloth feels rougher than before, though you know it hasn't changed, only your skin has. Outside, the light has shifted again, sharper now, gold and white, slicing clean lines through the arcades. The noise of the street returns, boots on stone, carts creaking, a flute played too confidently by someone too young to know better. You walk, not far, just enough to feel the sun on your face, just enough to remember you're not made of marble. At a corner stall, a man is selling scrolls, cheaply made, poorly copied. One promises the wisdom of Plato condensed into 12 lines. Another claims to be Cicero's lost joke collection. You wonder which would sell better. You pass a shrine tucked between two doorways. The god is obscure, its face weather-worn. Someone has left a coin and a dried flower. The offering seems more sincere than most Senate speeches. At home, your steward meets you with a short list of updates. The kitchen is out of cumin. Your cousin has sent a jar of garum that arrived broken. A poet named Scaevola has requested an audience. You pause at the last one. You knew Scaevola once. Not well. He wrote odes to stolen lovers and unpaid debts. He owed you both. You wave him away. Not today. Instead, you go to your garden. The sunlight falls across the fig tree, dappling the leaves in green and gold. A lizard scurries across the path. The air smells faintly of crushed thyme and old soil. You sit, not because you're tired, but because this is the only place where Rome doesn't ask you to speak. You stare at the wall. You count the cracks. You feel the minutes passing like coins slipped under a door, unseen but spent all the same. And when you finally rise, slowly, bones quietly protesting, you realize the day is already half gone. No decisions made, no battles won, no triumphs held. And yet you have lived it. Fully, quietly, without glory, without disgrace. And for a Roman senator, that is a kind of triumph. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You find yourself drifting again. Not sleeping, not thinking, just occupying. A body in a space, a man in a robe, a senator in the late afternoon light. The sun is lower now, painting long amber fingers across the courtyard tiles. The shadows have grown thoughtful. You sit beneath the arbor where the grapevine grows, not because the grapes are ripe, they're not, but because the shade is exactly wide enough to cradle your thoughts without crowding them. The house murmurs, not loudly, just enough to remind you that you're never entirely alone. A broom brushes across the corridor. Someone hums the chorus of an old drinking song. Somewhere, a sandal is being repaired with a rhythm that borders on musical. You reach for your cup. Water, not wine. A few sprigs of mint float lazily on the surface. The scent barely there, like a memory you're not sure belongs to you. You sip. It's not refreshing. It's not disappointing. It's just there, like the Senate, like marriage, like most of Rome. A parchment rests on your lap, half read, a legal matter regarding land boundaries near Capua. You've skimmed it twice and retained nothing but the names. They all blur into one long echo of Lucius's and Gaius's and someone's cousin's cousin who thinks he's been wronged. You fold it, not decisively, just enough to signal you're done pretending to care for today. Your wife passes through the portico. She carries a basket of figs, not yours, the better ones from the market. She pauses. You make eye contact. She does not stop walking. The silence between you is not cold, just old, like well-worn leather, flexible, durable, unspoken. You watch a pair of lizards sun themselves on the steps. One blinks, the other flicks its tail as if making a point. You envy them, not for their freedom, but for their ability to be content with nothing but warmth and stone. Eventually your steward appears. Quiet steps, polished manner. He does not bow anymore. You told him not to. It exhausted you. There is a visitor, he says. You raise an eyebrow. Not in interest, just as punctuation. Your nephew. Oh, of course. He enters with too much energy, too much voice, too many ambitions for the hour. His sandals are too clean, his tunic is too loud, his future is too certain. He hasn't learned to doubt himself yet. That will come. Rome ensures it. Uncle, he beams, I've just come from the Campus Martius. You nod slowly, as if that explains something. I was training with the cavalry. There's talk of a posting, something near the Danube. You resist the urge to ask why, not because you're uninterested, but because you already know the answer. Glory. Rome's favorite bedtime story. He speaks quickly, speaks loudly, speaks constantly. You catch maybe every fifth word. Command, prestige, alignment with certain figures, momentum. You wonder when conversation became a campaign. When he finally pauses to breathe, you ask the only question that matters. Do you actually want to go? He freezes, blinks, adjusts his sleeve, smiles, but less surely now. It's expected, he says. You nod. That, at least, is honest. He doesn't stay long. You suspect he didn't come for advice, just confirmation. And maybe to see what an old senator looks like when the applause stops. When he leaves, the courtyard feels wider, quieter, more honest. You return to the bench. The sun has shifted again. The vine now casts a net of thin shadows across your legs. You do not move. You do not need to. The steward returns. The philosopher is here. You had forgotten. Every month he comes, not because you asked him to, but because your wife insists that you should engage your mind, as if the Senate weren't already a punishment for thought. You nod. Bring him. He enters with soft sandals and sharp eyes, thin as a reed, draped in a tunic that has seen better decades. He bows slightly, less from respect than from bone memory. What truth have you brought me today? You ask, dryly. He shrugs. The same one as last month. You gesture for him to sit. He does. He smells faintly of dust, candle smoke, and something herbal, possibly celery. He begins, as always, with a question. He says, "What is the difference between peace and boredom?" You chuckle, not because it's funny, but because it isn't. He continues without waiting for your answer. He never waits. That's the comfort of philosophers. They pretend to ask, but never expect replies. He speaks of stillness, of moderation, of the stoic view that pain is temporary and opinion optional. You nod, not because you agree, but because the sound of a man trying to make sense of the world is oddly soothing. Eventually, he stops, not at a conclusion, just at a natural pause in the rhythm of his ramblings. You thank him, not with words, with stillness, with the gift of not interrupting. He seems satisfied. When he leaves, the house exhales. The birds return to the eaves. The shadows deepen. You rise. You move through the halls like smoke, drifting from one quiet space to another. In the kitchen,
The slaves are preparing something with lentils again. You smell cumin, garlic, vinegar. You imagine the meal before you see it. Brown, soft, forgettable, but it will be warm. That's enough. You return to your chamber briefly, just to wash your hands. The water in the basin has gone lukewarm. You splash it across your knuckles. You watch the drops fall. You count them. You catch your reflection in the bronze mirror. The man you see is not surprised to see you. You sit again in the garden, waiting for evening to settle properly. You hear a cart pass by, overloaded with amphoras, each one straining against its ropes like captured fish. The sky begins its slow descent into indigo, and you remain, not triumphing, not declining, just persisting, which, in Rome, may be the highest form of wisdom. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
Dinner arrives without ceremony. A tray carried by a boy you don't recognize, perhaps a new household slave, perhaps one on loan. He doesn't speak. That's good. You're not in the mood to exchange pleasantries with someone whose name you'll forget by morning. The food is exactly what you expected. Lentils, again. A poached egg, overcooked, resting like a forgotten offering on top. A square of honeyed bread, slightly burnt at one corner. The wine is thin but passable. You drink it slowly, not because you're savoring it, but because speed no longer serves any useful purpose. Your wife joins you halfway through the meal. She sits across from you, says nothing. You offer a polite nod. She returns it. This is affection now. Silent, practiced, careful. At one point, you look up to find her watching you. Not warmly, not coldly, just watching, as though you were a fresco in a temple, unmoving, slightly cracked, but still technically intact. You speak first. Did the cat come back? She blinks once. Yes. That's the third time this week. She enjoys being missed, your wife says, cutting her bread. Unlike some. You let that hang in the air, like steam over a broken bath. Not heavy, not dangerous, just familiar. The rest of the meal passes in the rhythm of shared silence. When she stands to leave, she touches your shoulder, not long, not tenderly, but deliberately. A reminder that you are not entirely alone in this house, even if it often feels like you are. After she's gone, you push your tray away. One grape remains. You stare at it for a moment. It is small, shriveled, and slightly dusty. You leave it untouched. You've already had your fill of symbols today. The house grows quieter. The kitchen noise fades into embers. The servants retreat behind curtains and corners. The fountain outside continues its soft, endless murmur. You walk toward it, barefoot. The tiles are cool now. The evening air has drawn its soft veil across the house. In the peristyle, you sit again. Your favorite bench, the one that curves slightly, shaped by years of the same tired posture. The sky overhead is ink blue, the stars sharp and faintly flickering. A crescent moon hangs in the west like a clipped coin. You listen. A dog barks in the distance. Someone's sandal slaps the stone too quickly. Probably a late courier or a drunken cousin returning home. Somewhere, a lute string plucks a hesitant scale, then stops. You breathe in.
The night smells of lemon peel, extinguished oil lamps, and fig leaves warmed by memory. You think of letters you haven't written, promises you never intended to keep, colleagues who call you friend but wouldn't wait 10 heartbeats to let you speak. You think of your brother, long dead, killed in a campaign that made no maps and earned no songs. You still remember the way his voice cracked when he laughed too hard. You don't remember the last thing you said to him. That feels important somehow. You let your fingers trace a groove in the bench, worn smooth by repetition. You have sat in this spot for decades. It has become part of your shape, or perhaps you've become part of its. A breeze passes through the courtyard, moving the vines above your head. They rustle gently, like old robes being folded. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to not see for a while. Time thins. Minutes smear together like ink on wet parchment. You are not sure how long you remain like this. A slave approaches at one point, stops, bows, and backs away without speaking. You must have looked too peaceful to interrupt. Eventually, the lamp oil burns low. One flicker, then another. The flames die not with drama, but with acceptance. You rise, slowly, carefully, not out of reluctance, but out of habit. Movement, in old age, becomes ritual. Each step a practiced pause. Back in your study, the coals are still faintly red in the brazier. A scroll lies open on the desk. Not one of yours. A verse from Ovid. Someone must have left it. You read a single line. And what is left when all is told but memory and breath? You read it again, then once more. You roll the scroll closed and set it aside. There is nothing more to do tonight. No arguments to prepare, no servants to scold, no guests to entertain. The day has given what it would give and taken what it would take. You leave the study, oil lamp in hand, its glow shrinking the world to a warm circle around your feet. At the small shrine by your bedroom, you pause. You light the offering lamp not because you believe the gods are watching, but because not lighting it feels disrespectful to the quiet. The household gods gaze back at you with chipped faces and unblinking eyes. They do not judge. They simply persist. You nod to them once, then enter your chamber. The bed has been turned down. The linens are smooth, faintly cool. You undress with slow, practiced gestures. Fold your robe, place it on the stool. Slide beneath the covers, like stepping into a familiar story. You lie still. Listen. The night is whole now. Rome sleeps, or at least pretends to. The gods, the streets, the regrets, all dimmed to a distant hum. You think vaguely about tomorrow, about what you might do differently, what you'll probably do the same. But the thoughts do not cling. They scatter like dust on marble. You inhale once, deeply, and you exhale. A Roman senator, in the last hour of another Roman day. Not noble, not heroic, just still here. But that is a story for tomorrow night.
You wake again, not with a start, not with fear, just the gentle confusion of a man who has been dreaming of water and has found instead a ceiling. The air is cooler now. A draft creeps beneath the door. Your linen sheet clings to one leg and leaves the other exposed. You adjust nothing. You lie still,
suspended in the long silence between midnight and whatever comes next. The house is asleep, properly this time. No servants whispering, no cats knocking over amphorae, no footsteps padding across distant tiles. Only your breathing and Rome's. You stare at the ceiling, familiar shadows stretch between the beams, softened by moonlight that filters in like spilled milk. A thought tries to form. It drifts too slowly. You let it go. Eventually, you sit up. Not out of purpose, just restlessness. The kind that visits gently, like an old friend who doesn't knock. You slide your feet to the floor. The stone is cold. Always is. You find your robe folded neatly where it always is, too. No one taught your steward how to place it just so, but he learned. You never praised him for it. That's how Roman households work. Perfection is expected. Praise is wasted. You light a lamp. The oil catches with a soft hiss. A small flame, enough to walk by, not enough to feel seen. You step into the hallway, and you pause. Something is different. The fountain is quiet, not dry, just paused, as if it too is holding its breath. You move toward it, slowly, sandals in hand, robe trailing slightly. The flame bends as you pass. At the edge of the atrium, you stop. The moonlight has flooded the tiles in silver. The air smells faintly of ash and something else. Jasmine, again, maybe. Or memory. And then a voice. Soft. Female. Not in the house. Beyond the garden wall. Singing. You know the melody. You don't know the words. It's an old song. A lullaby, perhaps. Or a lament. In Rome, the two are often the same. You do not move. You do not breathe. The voice continues. Pure. Low. Not polished. Not theatrical. The kind of voice one sings to olives while picking them, or to a child who refuses to sleep. Then silence. You wait, but it doesn't return. The night reclaims itself. You walk to the garden, letting your bare feet brush the earth between the stones. The fig tree sways slightly, as if it too is trying to recall the song. You sit on the low bench beside the herb beds. The rosemary smells stronger at night. The sage releases its bitterness when touched by moonlight. You don't touch anything. You just sit. You think about all the nights like this you never noticed. You wonder if your father ever walked the same path in the dark, or if he slept through it all, thinking morning was the only time worth claiming. The breeze passes again, cool, thoughtful, kind. You close your eyes. The scent of the garden folds around you like a woolen blanket. A slave clears his throat behind you, quietly. You don't turn. You speak softly. Yes? There's a light, sir, at the neighbor's villa. You nod. Let it burn. He lingers. You glance back. He looks uneasy. Young. First watch heard something. Not shouts, just sounds. You study him for a moment. His tunic is wrinkled. He's clutching the edge of his belt like it's a question. You sigh, rise, walk toward the rear corridor. Through the slit in the courtyard wall, you see it. A lantern. Swinging slightly. A figure beside it, stooped, then gone. You don't investigate. You've lived long enough in Rome to know when a thing is your concern and when it most certainly is not. You turn back. Tell the watch to stay alert. Yes, sir. He vanishes, like he was never there. Back inside, you return to the study. You don't know why. The fire has died down. The brazier glows faintly. You sit at your desk. The scrolls remain untouched. You open one. Glance at the words. Something about taxation and grain weights. You close it again. Instead, you reach for a scrap of parchment. You dip the stylus, and you write. Not to the Senate, not to a governor. You write a name, just a name. Your daughter's. Then you write nothing else. You stare at the ink, still glistening. You fold the parchment and place it inside a book of poetry, not for safekeeping, just because it needed a place to live. The oil in the lamp trembles. A fly circles once, then dies against the glass. You whisper something to the room. You're not sure what. Perhaps it was just breath that pretended to be language. You return to bed. Again. This time the linens have cooled. You lie down. You feel every joint settle into place like old stone. The ceiling watches. The walls exhale. The gods, still perched on their little ledge, blink silently through the dark. You close your eyes. You listen once more. No voices, no song, just the quiet hum of a city too ancient to sleep fully. And you, just one breath within it.
You wake again before the birds. This time it's not restlessness, not entirely. There's something else, something just beneath the surface of the silence. Not a sound, not a dream, just the feeling that something somewhere has slightly moved. You lie still, staring at the dark beams above you. The ceiling does not blink. It offers no opinion. Your breath is slow, even, but your thoughts have changed shape overnight. They feel leaner now, less ornamental, less afraid. Eventually, you sit up. There's no ceremony to it. You're not a general. You're not a statue. You're a man with aging knees and a bladder that no longer obeys ambition. The robe is folded. The basin is full. The brazier still faintly warm. Someone has tended these things while you slept. Someone always does. You splash your face. The water bites this morning, sharper, as if it wants you awake not just in body, but in mind. You light the lamp. The flame flickers in the bronze mirror. The reflection looks back at you like a tired witness. You do not greet him. The house is quiet. Of course it is. You walk through the outer corridor, past the shrine, past the faded mural of Hercules wrestling a boar. You never liked that image. Too much sweat, not enough thinking. You enter the garden barefoot again. The stones are damp. The fig leaves hang still, weighted by dew. The fountain has resumed its rhythm, soft and regular. You wonder if it stopped just for you last night. You sit beneath the arbor once more. The same place, the same posture, and yet the silence feels different, less empty. You think about your nephew again, his sharp voice, his two eager eyes, his words like coins thrown into a crowd. You were like that once, weren't you? You think about the philosopher, about his quiet, celery-scented presence. You realize you remember every word he said, despite pretending not to. You think about the name you wrote last night, your daughter's. You don't remember why you wrote it. You don't regret it either. A light creak interrupts you. The steward, holding a folded letter. He hands it to you silently. You recognize the seal, Baetica. You break it open without hope. It's just a report. Grain shipments, tax discrepancies, local complaints about a broken aqueduct. You skim the lines, not for meaning, but for tone. It's weary. Whoever wrote it wants to sound dutiful, but not desperate. A delicate art. You fold it once, then again, then place it beneath the wine jug. You've done your duty by reading it, or pretending to. Same difference. Breakfast is served soon after. A few olives, flatbread, and a dish of soft cheese. The cheese tastes faintly of straw and sunlight. You eat slowly, chewing each bite like it matters. A sparrow lands on the edge of the basin, tilts its head, flutters away. You envy it, not its wings, but its certainty. Later, a servant comes to clean the study. She is young, but not too young, careful, quiet. She dusts without needing to be told. You watch her a moment. She doesn't notice, or pretends not to. You ask her name. She startles. Junia, she says. You nod. You've worked her long? Since spring. And before that? Another house. They were louder. You chuckle once. We prefer silence here. She nods. I noticed. She finishes dusting the brazier and leaves. You think about calling her back. You don't. Instead, you unroll one of your old speeches, not to read, just to feel the weight of it. The parchment has yellowed. Your own handwriting is a little too proud, too sharp. Every sentence demands applause. You find that exhausting now. You think about rewriting it, then roll it back up and place it gently into a drawer. Let the past rest. It's tired, too. Midday comes, and with it, a strange quiet. Not the usual lull, but something more complete. Even the city sounds have softened. You step outside again. No sandals, no robe change, just you and Rome. You walk the edge of the courtyard, count the cracks in the tiles. You reach 34 before a breeze scatters your attention. The wind carries something odd, a scent you haven't smelled in years. Not herbs, not oil. Something sharper, like pressed papyrus and cold ink. It reminds you of the law courts, the forum, days when you stood surrounded by hundreds and still felt entirely alone. You sit by the fountain. The water reflects a crooked piece of sky. You speak out loud, not loudly, just enough to surprise yourself. I miss arguing. The water doesn't answer, but it listens. You lean back, close your eyes, listen to the wind threading through the vine leaves, to the hum of a bee near the basil. A memory surfaces, faint, a moment in your youth. You standing in the rain outside the Senate, soaked and shouting about some grain reform no one cared about. You were furious, alive, wrong. It was glorious. You almost laugh, but don't. A boy arrives with a scroll. He hands it to you without a word. You open it. It's from your friend Marcus, a dinner invitation. 3 nights from now, his house, 7 guests, a Greek musician, a new cook. You stare at the scroll. You haven't attended a dinner party in months, maybe longer. You consider replying, You don't. Not yet. You place it beside the unfinished letter to your daughter, two messages waiting for a man who doesn't know what to say yet. You remain there until the shadows grow long again, until the sun forgets how to touch the garden wall, until the lizards retreat, until your knees stiffen beneath you. You rise. You walk slowly back to your chamber. You remove your robe, fold it, wash your hands, press them to your face, breathe. You lie down in the half-light. The day is not quite over, but neither are you. You feel the ceiling watching, the walls listening, and for the first time in a long time, you feel like speaking.
You don't wake this time. You rise, quietly, easily, as if the body has finally agreed to the terms of your slowness. The sky outside is just beginning to pale. No gold yet, just a fading charcoal. The birds haven't started, though one of them has thought about it. You heard a single chirp, then regret. You sit on the edge of the bed. You rest your hands on your thighs and listen for aches. And there they are. Familiar, reasonable, unalarming. You stand anyway. The knees obey. You thank them silently. There's no robe waiting. You forgot to set it out. You find it yourself, folded neatly in the trunk near the window. The act of opening it is slow, careful, reverent in its way. The hinges creak like voices at a funeral, quiet but insistent. The robe is cool, rougher than yesterday, or maybe your skin has changed. You light no lamp. You let the room remain gray, a shadow among shadows. You move toward the study. Not to read, not to write, just to sit. You pass the shrine again. You pause. Not out of piety, but out of muscle memory. The gods are still there, still chipped, still patient. You nod. You don't light the lamp. Not today. In the study, the coals are completely dead. No glow, no warmth, just ash and faint curls of scent. You don't rekindle it. You sit at your desk, the same spot, same chair, the same faint tilt to the left. You used to complain about it. Now it's a comfort. You open the drawer, the scroll you once rewrote twice, the letter to your daughter, the dinner invitation. You lay them all out like small offerings or small questions. Then you do something strange. You read the letter again. And this time, you finish it. You write the rest in slow strokes. Not poetic, not rhetorical, just honest. You say you hope she is well. You say you remember her laugh. You say you never figured out how to say these things when she was smaller, louder, faster. You seal it. Then, without thinking, you call for a courier. The steward arrives almost immediately. Yes? You say, Baitika, holding out the scroll. He takes it without blinking. Today? You nod. He vanishes. Efficient. No surprise. You remain seated, unsure whether the weight you feel is from what you wrote or from the fact that it's no longer yours. The light in the room has changed again. Warmer now. The sun has breached the garden wall. A streak of it lands across the edge of your desk, revealing dust you didn't notice. You don't wipe it away. Instead, you stand and walk. The house has begun its murmuring again. A clay pot clinks. A broom swishes. The smell of toasted barley drifts in from the kitchen. You pass a young boy carrying an amphora half his size. You hold the door open for him. He stares at you in surprise. "Thank you, Dominus," he whispers, uncertain whether it was a test. You say nothing. That feels like enough. Outside, the day is already warm. Rome has decided it will be hot today. The kind of heat that settles and folds, that turns bronze to hazard and cloaks to punishment. You sit beneath the arbor. Again. But not like yesterday, not like before. You're upright now. Attentive. Slightly forward. Your hands rest on your knees like they used to when you were preparing to speak in the forum. The garden looks back at you. The fountain flows. The lizards sun themselves like philosophers. You close your eyes, but not in retreat. This is listening, not silence. You remember something Marcus once told me about the river near his estate, how it moved so slowly in summer that you couldn't tell if it was moving at all until a leaf drifted past. That's what today feels like. A leaf has moved. The steward appears. There's a man at the door, from the archives. You blink. Which archives? The municipal ones. You gesture lazily. Just leave them. He does. Looks disappointed, as if he expected the old senator to argue, to posture, to quote Cicero and ask impossible questions. But today, you simply say, "Thank you." He leaves faster than he arrived. You glance at the scrolls. You don't open them, but you might. Later. You eat a fig. Just one. From the vine this time, not the market. Slightly underripe. Sweet in a way that makes your gums ache. You don't wince. You smile. You haven't smiled at food in a long time. You hear your wife before you see her. Not footsteps, not voice. Just the rustle of fabric and the faint sigh she makes when she thinks no one's listening. She joins you at the arbor. Doesn't ask. Just sits. You don't speak. You pass her a fig. She takes it, bites, winces slightly, then chews. "I'm thinking of going to Marcus's dinner," you say. She raises an eyebrow. "Why?" You shrug. "I remembered I used to like him." She studies your face for a long moment. "You still do," she says. You nod. That's the kindest thing she said all year. You sit together for a long while. No arguments, no couriers, no Senate decrees, just two older Romans eating fruit too early in the season. Eventually, she stands, touches your shoulder again, more firmly this time, then walks away. The day continues, quietly, but not passively. The fountain still flows. The birds return. The breeze comes and goes. And you are awake now, not just out of sleep, out of delay, out of waiting. Something has shifted. You don't know what yet, but you can feel it. Like a breath taken in before the speech begins.
The sun is higher now, not scorching yet, but no longer shy. It leans through the columns of your courtyard like a senator leaning too close during debate, warm, persistent, unavoidable. You sit inside now, near the window, not out of retreat, but choice. The light comes in at a sharp angle, cutting across the floor in golden stripes. Dust dances in it like tiny witnesses. The scrolls from the archives still lie untouched on your desk. You glance at them again. You don't open them, but you do stack them, straighten them.
A small gesture, but deliberate. A sign perhaps that you no longer intend to ignore everything. The steward returns. A messenger from the praetor. You raise an eyebrow. Not surprise. Curiosity. You nod. Let him in. He enters, sweating and formal, young. His toga is folded too precisely, probably a recent graduate from rhetoric school, still terrified of dirt. He bows too deeply, hands you a scroll, waits. You read it quickly. A committee, a vacancy, an invitation. You're being asked, no, encouraged to return. Not full duty, not every day. Just your presence, your opinion, a voice they still recognize. You look up. The boy is fidgeting. Tell them I'll consider it, you say. He nods, eager. May I offer them a hopeful answer? You smile faintly. Offer them an honest one. He bows again, almost drops his stylus, leaves. You reread the scroll, then set it aside. You're not offended, not flattered. You're curious. You rise. Your knees complain less today. Maybe they sense you mean it this time. You step outside again. The garden smells stronger now. Basil, earth, and sun. A cat sleeps under the lemon tree, belly exposed to danger it no longer believes in. You walk the edge of the courtyard, one slow step after another. You don't count the tiles this time. You greet them, one by one. In the kitchen, you pass the cook. She nods without pausing. She's rubbing herbs between her palms, bay leaf and coriander, you think, preparing a broth. You realize you're hungry, not out of boredom, actual hunger, the kind that feels like a return letter from your own body. Lunch is offered, a simple plate, wheat porridge with honey, a few almonds, a boiled egg. It tastes like something meant for survival, and something gently proud of that. Afterwards, you return to the study. You open one of the municipal scrolls, slowly. You read, not for duty, not for performance, just for the rhythm of it. There's a mistake in one of the tax summaries, a duplication in the grain allotments. You mark it, gently, then write a note beneath it. Check Alexandria records. You smile. You didn't expect to care. A small knock. Junia again, the quiet one. She brings water, hesitates. May I ask a question, Dominus? You nod. Is it true that you once debated Senator Varro for 6 hours? You blink, then chuckle. 8, actually. He fell asleep during my closing. She smiles. It's small, but real. You ask her where she's from. She tells you, a village outside Capua. You ask if she ever plans to return. She pauses. I don't know, she says. Here is quiet. That feels rare. You nod. It is. She leaves. You watch her go, not in judgment, not in longing, just in recognition. You return to the scroll. Finish reading. Make a second note. Your handwriting is still sharp, if slower. By late afternoon, your wife appears again. This time she's holding a small bowl. Mulsum, she says. You look like you needed it. You take the cup. Sip. It's cool, spiced, gently sweetened with honey. You look at her. She's wearing the red stola you bought her years ago. She hasn't worn it in a long time. You're going, aren't you? You consider lying, but you don't. I think I am. She nods. Then go shaved. Don't let them think you've turned into a myth. You almost laugh. I'll let them fear I might. You share the drink, one sip passed between two aging mouths. You sit together again, No urgency, no schedule. Just the same slow Roman sun tracing its lazy way across the courtyard. And this time you don't wait for the day to end. You rise, call for a barber, ask for your toga to be brushed, send a short reply to Marcus, "I'll come." Tell the cook not to overdo the garum. You bathe again, not for ritual, but for pleasure. You oil your skin. You consider perfume. You don't use it. You stand before the mirror, adjust the folds. You look like a senator again, not because of the garment, but because of the intention. You're not young, but Rome doesn't ask for youth. Rome only asks that you show up. The house watches you from the inside, quiet, steady. You nod to it, as if thanking a friend for letting you rest this long. The sun begins to tilt westward, the shadows lengthen. You step outside, toward Marcus, toward the dinner, toward the voice you once had and maybe still do. And as you close the door behind you, you don't look back.
Rome meets you like a wave. Not loud, not violent, just constant. Voices echo between walls. Sandals scrape on stone. A woman shouts at a runaway goat. A boy recites bad poetry to a distracted tutor. Two men argue over fig prices. A third man laughs at them both. You remember this. Not the noise, the rhythm. Your sandals strike the paving stones like they know the route better than you do. The toga feels heavier in the street. It always did. That was the point. Dignity is supposed to be exhausting. You pass a beggar. He nods. You nod back. There's a language in this city that doesn't require speech, just mutual recognition that you've both survived another summer. The sun reflects off temple marble, too bright to admire. Children dart around columns pretending to be gods. You nearly trip over one. His mother apologizes. You wave it off. Past the forum now, past the old Senate steps. They haven't crumbled yet. Neither have you. Your legs ache, but not in complaint. They are simply reminding you that use has consequences. Marcus's domus appears around the corner, modest by senatorial standards, still absurd by anyone else's. You pause just before the gate. Breathe. Wipe your brow. Straighten your folds. The knock. The door opens to a flurry of smells. Garum, roast duck, pine resin, and pride. A young slave greets you with alarmed politeness. Dominus Marcus is expecting you. The other guests are already inside. You nod. I'm not here to impress them. The boy swallows nervously. Understood. Inside, the atrium buzzes softly. A few lamps are already lit, though it's not yet dusk. Someone's trying to make the light feel expensive. Marcus spots you and smiles before he stands. He's shorter than you remembered, or maybe your memory had gotten too poetic. He's wearing deep green, always vain, always charming. You came, so Rome isn't ending after all. Not tonight. Tomorrow's still available. He laughs and claps your shoulder. His grip is firmer than expected. Yours is too. The other guests greet you with the usual careful interest, half curiosity, half calculations. Most are younger, some too eager. One is asleep already. You're shown to a couch near the corner of the triclinium. Not the place of honor, not the worst seat either. A deliberate choice. The food begins immediately. Dates stuffed with cheese, lentils in vinegar, quail eggs dusted with coriander, a dish so full of honey it feels more potion than meal. The wine is strong. Marcus pours the first cup himself. To your return, he says. You raise yours. To my curiosity.
The musicians begin, a flute, barely audible above the chewing and story trading. Someone attempts a joke about Nero's poetry. Another answers with one about Cicero's neck. You don't speak much, but you listen, and that is noticed. You catch one man glancing at you between bites, his eyes measuring your silence like weight on a scale. You recognize that look. You used to wear it. Someone finally asks, "Senator, what do you think about the new aqueduct tax?" You wipe your fingers calmly, sip your wine, let the silence stretch just long enough. I think Rome always builds something, usually taller than it needs to be. Laughter. Quiet. Respectful. You've earned your place again. The conversation deepens. Names are named, reforms discussed. The wine keeps flowing, but you pace yourself. This is no longer your arena, but the sand still remembers your feet. Marcus leans in at one point. You should come back. To what? To relevance. I never left relevance. I just stopped performing it. He raises his cup to that. By the time dessert appears, candied plums, honeyed almonds, and baked pears, the conversation has mellowed. One guest has fallen asleep with a fig in his mouth. Another is quoting Homer backward. You don't stay late. You stand before the others do. Thank Marcus. Decline the offer of a litter. You say, "I'll walk." He doesn't argue. Outside, the city has softened. The streets are mostly empty. Lanterns flicker on doorposts. Somewhere, a dog barks once and then thinks better of it. You walk slowly, past temples, past sleeping merchants, past a child curled beneath a statue of Mercury, dreaming of flight. You turn toward your own street, toward the walls that held you all day. The gates are open. Junia is sweeping the entry tiles. She sees you, freezes. You came back? I nod, and not even drunk. She smiles. You pass her without another word. Inside, the house is quiet. Your wife is already asleep. Your study is still warm. You sit once more at your desk. You remove the scroll from Marcus, fold it, set it beside your own reply. You look out toward the garden. The fountain gurgles, indifferent to politics, philosophy, or figs. You think, this city is too old to notice when one man leaves, but it's still young enough to notice when he returns. And as you remove your sandals, you smile. Just slightly.
The next morning arrives not with urgency, but with clarity. You wake before the servants again, though now it feels like choice rather than curse. The air is still cool. The window's silk curtain shifts just slightly, like it's trying to remember the shape of wind. You sit up. No groans, no stiffness, just gravity, acknowledged and accepted. You walk barefoot to the basin. Rinse your face. Let the water settle across your skin like memory. You're still wearing the aftertaste of last night. Not the wine, not the food, but the voices. The way people turned when you spoke. The way silence answered you back with respect. You look at yourself in the bronze mirror. The lines are still there, deeper than ever, but today they don't feel like losses. They feel like a map. You dress with care, not vanity, intention. Clean linen, a fresh sash, no perfume, but a bit of oil at the temples, just enough to remind the day it isn't dealing with a ghost. The steward meets you with news. A boy from the praetor's office. He left this, a scroll. sealed, red wax. You break it open, an invitation to observe a council. Nothing binding, no speech required, just your presence. You set it aside, but not far. You eat breakfast in the garden, dates and cheese, one fig, a cup of watered wine. The fountain murmurs like a confidant. A bird lands on the rim and tilts its head at you, unsure whether you are statue or threat. Junia appears again, not with water or towels this time, but just passing through. She's humming. You listen. The tune is familiar. You say, "That's an old song." She pauses. "My mother used to hum it when she made vinegar paste." You nod. "Mine sang it when she braided my sister's hair." You don't speak further. You let the tune settle between you. She continues on. Later, your wife enters the study holding a tablet, not clay, wax. "Messages from Marcus," she says. You read the first, a complaint about bread prices. The second, a crude joke about a mutual friend's sandals. You smile. "He's trying to lure me back through comedy." She sits, not across from you, beside. "I told the steward to prepare your dark toga," she says. You presume I'm going. "No," she says. "I presume you've already decided and are pretending not to." You laugh. She doesn't. She reaches over and takes one of your notes, reads it. You don't stop her. "This handwriting looks steadier," she says. "It's the ink," I lie. "No, it's you," she corrects, then stands and leaves. You stare at the note she read. It's nothing important, just an observation about marble taxes, but now it feels like something more, a trace of motion. By midday, the heat arrives. Not brutal, just heavy enough to suggest that Rome is watching again. You walk to the courtyard. A messenger waits. Young, nervous. "Dominus," he says. The praetor's office asks again, "Will you attend?" You nod. "Tell them I will sit and listen, nothing more." His shoulders drop in relief. That's all they want. You do not correct him. In the afternoon, the street is quieter. The city has entered its nap. Children are hidden. Dogs sleep in the shade of arches. You gather your scrolls, not for use, for presents. You tie them with a strip of linen, slide them into your satchel. You look at your hand before you lift the strap. The veins are raised now. The skin is thinner, but the grip is still firm. You step outside. The street receives you calmly. The forum is not loud today, just busy enough to feel alive. You walk slowly. No one calls your name, but many look. At the curia, the guards nod you through, not because they recognize you, but because they've been told to. Inside, the chamber is cooler. Shadows stretch across the mosaic floor. You take your seat in the back row, not raised, not central, but present. The discussion begins. You listen, not with judgment, with precision, the way a craftsman listens to a chisel. There is debate over imports, over water rights, over which temples deserve a repaint. You say nothing until a younger senator says something wrong. Not evil, just lazy. You clear your throat. Every head turns. You speak, not loudly, but with weight. That argument only holds if we pretend Baetica doesn't exist. The young man blinks, stammers. You continue. 3 provinces, 5 temples, and a trade route depend on that river's irrigation. Ignore it, and you'll be repainting temples no one visits. Silence. Then a few nods, one cough. Someone scratches a note. You sit back. You've said enough. After the meeting, Marcus claps your shoulder. You're terrible at just observing. You reply, Rome is terrible at making silence comfortable. He laughs. Come again next week. You don't answer. Not yet. You walk home slowly. The city feels almost familiar again, not because it changed, but because you showed up. At your door, Junia meets you. Did they listen? She asks. You pause. They heard. She nods. It's a start. Inside, your wife has left a cup of wine on your desk. No note, no reason. You sit. Sip. Let the weight of the day settle, not like burden, like fabric, something you can wear. You unroll one scroll, begin to write again, not for show, just because something in you has turned back on. And as the sky darkens again and the fountain song returns to its gentle rhythm, you feel like the city hasn't changed, but you have. And that is a story for tomorrow night.
You wake late, not because you're tired, not because the night was long, simply because, for once, your body believed you'd earned it. The light has already begun its climb across the garden wall. The fountain has found its midday voice, a rhythmic, slightly smug burble. You listen from the bed. Then you rise. No robe this time, no ceremony. You stretch, longer than usual. The muscles protest less. The bones click politely. You're ready. You step into the corridor and find the steward already waiting. He does not flinch. You've startled him enough times now. There's someone at the door, he says, not a messenger. You raise an eyebrow. Then what? A woman, veiled, older. She said her name is Livia. You pause. The name stirs something. Not quite memory, more like the smell of smoke without the fire. You nod. Let her in. You dress quickly. Simple linen, no toga, no pretense. When you enter the atrium, she's waiting near the column, veiled, yes, but unmistakably composed. She doesn't fidget, doesn't look around. She waits like a statue that was told to breathe. You say her name. She lifts her veil. It is her. A woman from your early years in the Senate. Not a lover, not quite a rival, something stranger. A confidant in moments when everyone else wanted something. I heard you were alive, she says. I heard the same. She steadies your face, not with warmth, not with coldness either, just the kind of gaze that tallies everything without writing it down. You stopped attending, she says. I started watching, you reply. And now, you gesture to the garden. Now I'm learning to sit and speak, not one or the other. She considers that, then hands you a folded tablet. They'll want your voice on this. It's about land grants, some old alliances being disturbed. You may remember them. You signed one. You don't open it yet. I thought you would never return, she adds. I'm not sure whether to be disappointed or relieved. You're not the only one, you say. She smiles, briefly, like a window opened and closed in the same breeze. Then she turns, leaves without waiting for wine, olives, or pretense, just gone. You stare at the tablet, then open it. Inside is the record. Old. 10 years old. Your signature is there, in firmer ink. You remember the negotiation vaguely, rural lands promised to a veterans cohort, later absorbed into a senator's estate, now contested. You sigh. Rome never forgets where you placed your ink. You sit, you read it again, you make notes, not with indignation, but clarity. You mark where the argument will fail. You underline where the truth is useful. You call for a courier. Deliver this to the committee. No response expected. The steward raises an eyebrow. Isn't this delicate? You nod. That's why I'm sending it. You eat lunch alone. Cheese, lentils, slightly sour bread. Everything tastes sharper now, not because the cook changed, because you have. Later, Marcus sends a scroll, just 2 words. You're missed. You don't reply. You just smile. You nap briefly, on the bench under the arbor. The sun drowses with you. The cat naps near your sandals again. When you wake, the day has shifted. The wind smells of distant firewood. You stretch, stand, return to your study. Junia arrives with a message. From your daughter, she says. You sit down before you open it. The wax is neat, familiar. Inside, her words are brief, unadorned. She received your letter. She's well. She asks if the fig tree in the garden still leans west. She remembers that tree. You stare at the note for a long time, then walk outside. You find the tree. It leans, just slightly, the same direction, as if it too remembers being watched. You speak softly. She asked about you. The tree says nothing, but it seems pleased. That evening, your wife joins you again. She's holding a folded cloth. Inside it, your Senate ring. You raise your eyebrow. I thought you sold that. She shrugs. I kept it. I knew the day might come. You turn the ring over in your hand. The engraving is faded, the eagle barely visible, but it's yours. You slide it on. It still fits. She says, don't lose yourself. You nod. I'm trying to find the version that was never really gone. She kisses your cheek once, leaves. You sit until the stars appear one by one like old debts come to rest. The fountain sings quietly. The tree sways westward. The brizzy breathes without asking. And you are not finished.
The day begins not with silence, but with sound. Not loud, not urgent, just real. The slow creak of the city stretching its limbs, the roll of wheels on stone, a distant hammer shaping something forgettable. You wake with the feeling that something is scheduled, not dreaded, just expected. And you are indeed expected. The council meets today, again, this time in the smaller chamber, the one with the cracked dome and the old wall paintings of Romulus looking mildly annoyed at Remus. You dress with more care today, not extravagantly, but you choose the better tunic, the heavier sash. You let the steward brush the folds this time. You let him trim the edges of your beard, too. He seems quietly pleased by this. You don't comment. Your wife is already awake. She offers no opinion, only a nod. That is enough. As you sip your watered wine, you glance at the scrolls spread on your desk. You've read them 3 times. They haven't changed, but you have. You feel no desire to win the discussion today, only to complete it. That is a different kind of authority. You leave before the heat settles in. The city greets you again, not with fanfare, but with that odd form of Roman recognition. Glances held slightly too long. nods that carry more weight than words, shopkeepers who straighten when you pass but don't say why. At the Curia, they've reserved a seat for you, not in the center, but not in the back anymore. You sit, lay your notes on the table, look up slowly. The discussion begins. The issue today, water allocation, tax enforcement in the provinces, and inevitably, grain. Always grain. Rome survives on grain and gossip, and sometimes the same mouths carry both. The younger senators argue in diagonals. Cleverness ricochets across the room. You don't interrupt. Not yet. Until someone suggests dissolving an old grant. Yours, in fact. The one you defended silently yesterday. You speak. That land supports 75 families now. Dissolve it, and you dissolve them. The room quiets, not out of fear, but because the voice came with no anger, no theater, just facts. You continue. We cannot fix Rome by pretending our old decisions were mistakes. They weren't. They were choices. Own them. The silence lasts longer than expected. Then one of the younger ones, Cassius, maybe, leans forward and says, "What would you propose instead?" You meet his gaze. A pause. Before we legislate what we barely understand. He sits back, nods once. You don't need a vote. You've already altered the direction of the room. By the end of the session, no resolution is passed, but no damage is done either, which in Roman terms is a victory. You step outside. The light is harsher now, bouncing off the forum like an accusation. You squint, rub your temples. Marcus appears beside you with a fig in one hand and a scroll in the other. "You're becoming popular again," he says. "Never a good sign," you reply. He smiles, hands you the fig. You take it, bite. It's warm from his pocket, slightly bruised, still perfect. He says, "Come to my villa this weekend. Bring your wife. We'll pretend we're philosophers." You say, "I already do that." He says, "Yes, but there we can do it with olives." You promise nothing. That too is Roman. You walk home slower today, not from fatigue, but deliberation. You notice things. The crack in the aqueduct arch, the girl sweeping flower petals into the gutter, the old man selling carved spoons to no one. You feel Rome breathing, not with force, but with age, and maybe affection. At your door, the steward greets you with a letter. Another wax seal, this one unfamiliar. You open it in the atrium. It's from a senator you barely remember, one of the quieter ones. He thanks you for restraint, for clarity, for not turning every sentence into performance. You reread the note, then fold it. No reply necessary, but you'll remember his name next time. Inside, your wife has arranged dates on a plate in the study. No explanation. You sit, eat two, save the rest. You unroll a scroll, begin drafting a proposal. Not flashy, not poetic, just something that might work. Junia knocks, offers tea. You accept. As she pours, she glances at the parchment. "You're writing again." You nod. "Worse, I mean it." She smiles. "Rome will notice." You say, "Rome never stops noticing. It just takes breaks." She leaves you to your work. The fountain hums. The shadows lean eastward again. The cat returns to its familiar spot. And you? You feel like someone Rome could ask for help. Not because you were loud, but because you stayed quiet long enough to know when not to be. And that
is a story for tomorrow night.
The city wakes before you. For once, you let it. The sky is already pale. A soft gold spills over the rooftops, pooling quietly in corners of your courtyard. The fountain has a colder voice this morning. The water speaks in syllables, not songs. You sit by the window and sip lukewarm wine. No bread, no fruit, just the wine. It's enough. You watch the servants move through their routines. No one rushing, no one dawdling. The house functions like a memory you've decided to believe in again. Your wife joins you briefly. She doesn't sit. She fastens her cloak and adjusts her brooch in the polished bronze mirror. She says she's going to visit her cousin. You raise an eyebrow. She's still dying, you ask? She's taken a break from it, she says. As have I. You nod. That feels fair. You don't leave the house today. Not out of avoidance, but purpose. You remembered that thinking, too, is a Roman duty, provided you write some of it down. And so you do. You return to your study, unroll a blank scroll, stare at it. Then, very carefully, you begin. You write not to the Senate, not to your daughter, not to Rome, to yourself. You list the names of men you once debated, the ones you bested, the ones who bested you, the ones who vanished, the ones you stayed long enough to become boring. You list 3 things you still believe, then 2 you no longer do. You draw a small map of your childhood villa, the olive tree, the rain barrels, the dog that bit everyone but you. You pause, then right beneath it, still more orderly than the Senate, you chuckle softly. The sound surprises you. You hear a knock, not a servant's. It's Cassius, the young senator, the one who asked you about grain. You open the door yourself. He doesn't know what to do with that. I hope I'm not intruding, he says. You are, but you may as well come in. He does, carefully, like Rome might punish him for stepping across your threshold without a quorum. He sits when invited. You offer wine. He declines, nervously. I wanted to ask, he says, about that land decree. The way you countered it, it wasn't personal, but it felt personal. I nod. That's the trick. He looks confused. You speak truth, but you make it feel like memory, not argument. He nods slowly. You learned that from Cicero? No. I learned it from my aunt, who could make you feel guilty just by slicing pears. He actually laughs. That surprises you more than it should. You ask him what he wants. Not power, he says, not yet. I think I want permission. To do what? To slow down, he says. To say less, to mean more. You study him. He isn't lying. That too surprises you. You lean forward. Then here it is. Slow down. Speak when the silence is longer than your fear, and when you think you've made your point, wait one more breath. He nods again, writes it down. That part is less endearing. When he leaves, he thanks you. You close the door softly. You return to your scroll. Cross out a sentence, rewrite it with fewer words. You like it better now. Outside, the wind has changed direction. The trees shift. The sun moves across the floor like a gold coin you don't intend to pick up. You eat a late lunch. Grapes, cold chicken, flatbread. You eat slowly. Junia brings you a note. From your daughter, she says. You open it. One sentence. Yes, the tree still leans west. You fold it twice. Slide it into the drawer beside your ring. You call for a scribe, not to dictate, just to sit with you and copy your older writings. You find yourself curious again. What did I once say when I thought it mattered? He copies. You listen. Occasionally, you interrupt. No, that's wrong. I meant dignity, not dominion. He corrects it. You approve. You spend an hour this way, then 2. By the time the sun fades and lamps begin to flicker, you feel, strangely, useful. Not important, just useful. Your wife returns near sunset. You ask how her cousin is. She's pretending to be grateful for life. It's exhausting. Isn't it always? You eat supper together, not in silence, but not with effort either. You talk about unimportant things, the new cobbler, the way the cat hates guests, the boy at the corner who sings like a cracked flute. You sleep early, not from weariness, but because rest has become somehow purposeful. As your eyes close, you think not of debates or decrees or glory. You think of that one sentence, the one your daughter sent. Yes, the tree still leans west. And in the dark, so do you.
You wake to wind. Not a storm, just wind. A dry inland breeze threading its way through the shutters, dragging temple dust and baker's flour across the morning air. The fountain sounds different when wind is present, less like water, more like breath. You sit by the edge of your bed, toes resting against cool tile. You flex your feet once, twice. Your sandals wait beside the bench, positioned as they always have been, but somehow today more patient. No one calls for you, no summons, no couriers, no Marcus with figs or scrolls pretending to be jokes. You dress slowly, not for duty, not for guests, just to be dressed. Linen robe, loosely tied. You don't fasten the clasp too tightly. Today does not require armor. You step into the atrium and find Junia sweeping already. The wind has undone her work as fast as she performs it. She says nothing, only nods at your passing. You respond in kind. You walk to the study, but don't sit. You unroll one scroll, reread your note from yesterday, your daughter's line. Still elegant, still short, still enough. You consider writing a reply, then stop. Not because you lack words, but because you feel none are required. Not yet. Instead, you walk the courtyard perimeter, the same path you paced on that first morning days ago when boredom still wore the mask of dignity. Now, the same stones, the same fig tree, but everything feels less theatrical. You have stopped trying to convince Rome or yourself that you're busy. And that, oddly, is progress. You hear a rustle behind you. It's your wife, holding a cup of warm water with mint. She offers it without comment. You sip. She watches you drink, then says, "You're different." How so? You don't look like you're performing solitude anymore. I'm not. I am simply alone. She studies you, then adds, "You seem to have made peace with that." I smile. It's a temporary peace, but I'll sign the treaty. She laughs, that warm, shallow laugh you hadn't heard in weeks. I'm going to the baths. Come if you like, or don't. I'll pretend to miss you either way. You raise your cup. May your towel be dry and your masseuse gentle. She departs with purpose, with peace. You remain. You sit beneath the arbor and listen, not for anything in particular, just to hear what the house sounds like when no one asks anything of you. Eventually, you hear footsteps, soft, uneven, not rushed. Junia again. She clears her throat. Would you mind if I asked something? You gesture. She holds up a wax tablet. If a servant wishes to leave, how should she say so? You study her. Her eyes are calm, not afraid, curious. Do you wish to leave? Not today, but I might, eventually. You nod. Then you say it exactly like that. Clearly, early, without apology. She looks relieved, not because she plans to go, but because now she knows how to, if she must. You tell her, freedom isn't a ceremony, it's a sentence. She writes that down, then smiles faintly. Later, you open the small chest in your study, the one with your father's old seals, a few forgotten letters, and a cracked stylus. You hadn't looked through it in years. You find a note he once sent you on the day of your first speech. Speak less than they expect, mean more than they're ready for. You copy it, slowly, onto new parchment. Then tuck the old note away again, not out of reverence, but because now you finally understand it. Midday arrives. You eat olives, a slice of goat cheese, a crust of bread. You chew slowly. No audience, no pretense, just teeth and hunger and time. The steward enters with a scroll. He says, "A request from the archives. They've asked if you'd return to complete the population record for Hispania. Apparently no one else knows how to make the columns add up." You exhale. Not annoyance, not joy, just acceptance. "I'll begin tomorrow. Let them know I'll bring my own ink." He nods, grateful, leaves. You write nothing for the rest of the afternoon. Instead, you water the plants in the courtyard yourself, the olive bush, the basil, the vine that insists on growing sideways. And when evening falls, you light a single oil lamp. Sit by it. You do not open a scroll. You do not call for company. You simply sit. Let the breeze return. Let the house exhale. Let Rome, for once, handle itself without you. And you, with your hands folded in your lap and your eyes not quite shut, think only this. Today was quiet, and that was enough.
You wake before dawn.
Not to the sound of wind or fountains or footsteps, just stillness. The kind of stillness that makes you hesitate. Wonder if time has paused, if Rome has decided to hold its breath for one morning just to see what silence tastes like. You sit up. The darkness is soft, not heavy. Velvet, not stone. You rise without lighting a lamp. Your feet know the floor. Your hands brush the air like you're remembering where the world is. In the atrium, the faint outline of the impluvium glows with moonlight. The water is perfectly still. You stare at your own reflection, not to admire it, but to verify it still exists. You sit on the bench near the fountain and breathe. Nothing demands you yet. No scroll, no summons, no favor owed. Even the fountain seems to wait. You stay there until the first sounds return, soft footsteps, a pot clinking in the kitchen, the creak of the courtyard gate. Rome begins again. But you do not rise just yet. Instead, you close your eyes, just for a moment, not to sleep, just to confirm that you can. When you open them again, the sky has lightened by a single shade, enough to see your hands, enough to decide the day is real. You dress without ceremony, tunic, sandals. You tie the sash with less precision than usual, but it holds. Junie is already tending the ivy along the wall. She doesn't see you pass, but she hums, the same tune as before. You still don't know the words. That no longer bothers you. You sit in your study and open the scroll you never finished. You read the last few lines. The ink is faded already. You dip your stylus. Continue. You don't write policy or names or warnings. You write, "The city remains, and so do I. For now." You sign it with your full name. You fold it, not for anyone in particular, just so it exists. Your wife appears in the doorway, holding a cup. She says nothing, just places it beside you and sits across from you. You both sip. The silence between you is seasoned now. "I heard you're going to the archives today," she says. You nod. They need someone who remembers how math used to work. "Take a cushion," she says. "The chairs are brutal." You smile. "I always forget how practical your love sounds." She shrugs. "You don't marry poets. You marry survivors." You both finish the tea. Later you walk to the forum. The sun follows you, but not urgently. You pass the same columns, the same dogs, the same merchants pretending they aren't watching senators stroll past. At the archives, the clerk is young and breathless. He bows too deeply, hands you a scroll, and apologizes for its condition before you even open it. You reassure him. If it hasn't fallen apart by now, it probably never will. You sit at a low desk. It wobbles. You fold a strip of parchment beneath one leg to steady it. Then you begin. For hours, you review numbers, tally exports, reconcile names with fields, find inconsistencies, and correct them without ceremony. It feels like sweeping a temple floor, quiet, necessary, forgotten by most. At midday, Marcus appears holding 2 figs. He places one beside you, doesn't interrupt, just sits nearby. You glance at him. "Thought you were above accounting." He shrugs. "I'm above many things. Hunger isn't one of them." You both eat in silence. Eventually he says, "They talk about you again." You keep writing. "What do they say?" "That you've returned." You nod. "I never truly left. I just stopped arriving." He laughs. "That's the most Roman thing I've ever heard." He doesn't stay long. He never does. But his presence lingers for a while afterwards. By the time the sun angles west, you have finished your section. You roll the scroll neatly, seal it, and hand it to the clerk. He asks if you'll return tomorrow. You consider the question more seriously than he intended. Maybe, or maybe I'll remember how to forget again. You walk home slowly. Rome unfolds around you, not like a city, but like an old friend retelling a story you no longer need to interrupt. At your gate, you pause. The ivy's grown longer. Junia has tied it back with a ribbon. A practical beauty. Inside, the house feels cool. Your wife is in the garden. She looks up. Did you finish? Yes. Did you matter? You think, the nod. A little. She smiles. That's all Rome ever lets us be. You sit beside her, watch the light slide down the wall. Later you eat supper with her. Olives, chickpeas, one peach split between you. No servant, no ceremony. The fountain hums behind you. A dog barks in the alley. Somewhere someone sings off key. The city will continue. So will you. But there's nothing left to prove. You light a single lamp before bed, not because it's dark, but because it feels like grace. And as you lie down, breathe once, then again, you think, this has been a long day, a full day, a Roman day. And tomorrow? Tomorrow will arrive when it's ready. But that is no longer your story to tell.